Hello, friends. I'm Heidi with Onigo Stamping, and welcome to my craft corner. I am so excited that you are here with me tonight. If you are here and watching live, go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know that you're here and watching. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that as well. I love it when you come back and watch the replay later. So I'm really excited tonight because I have a fabulous, I can't even talk, a fabulous set of stamps to share with you. And I'm going to share watercoloring. Raise your hand if you're a little bit scared of doing watercoloring. I know a lot of you are. You're like, no, that's hard, right? That's hard. I can't do it and make it look good. Well, I am here to tell you that you should not be afraid of watercoloring. Watercoloring is easy, especially with stamped images. And I'm going to show you a couple different looks with watercoloring tonight. Hello, Kimberly. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So before I get started, if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator. You can find out more about me by heading over to my website, onigostamping.com, or come and join me over in my Facebook group. That is where we hang out and have all the fun, and I'd love to have you in there as well. You'll find all the links to everything in the description to this video. There's also a link to join my newsletter. And when I send out a weekly email newsletter, and every week there is a free card tutorial. So definitely click on that and join my newsletter as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and flip the cameras around. Oni go, let's get stamping. Not that one. You know, one of these days I'm going to learn to push the right button. All right, so tonight I am using the Happiness Abounds stamps, and they're right here on page 108 and 109 in the catalog. It's a gorgeous set. I've been playing with this a lot lately. This was one of the stamps that I could pre-order, so that's why I've been playing with it a lot. My more new stuff, I should say, is coming next week, so you have to wait a little bit longer. But it's a gorgeous suite of products, and it has this beautiful pattern paper that comes with it, and these little gems. Of course, the gems. Oh, here they are. They're over here. These like sparkly gems, and they're super pretty too. And of course, the dies come with it. Tonight, though, I'm not going to use this gorgeous pattern paper, even though I absolutely love it. I'm not going to use that tonight. Instead, let me go ahead and show you. Now, most of our pattern paper is part of a suite of products, which means there's stamps and dies and accessories and things to match it that all come together if you want, or you can get them separately. But the paper that I'm going to use tonight is the Perfectly Penciled Designer Series paper. And this paper actually is not part of a suite. It is just pretty paper. And I love it because it is kind of like well, it's black and white, but it very much looks penciled. It has that graphite black look to it instead of a real heavy black. So really pretty. We're going to use that tonight as well. So let me go ahead. These are the stamps. So pretty. I think you guys saw those pretty well. And they have great sentiments too, but I really like them because they've got this really open line image, which is going to be great for doing these watercoloring techniques. Let me very quickly show you the paper before we get started. So here is this gorgeous, perfectly penciled paper. It is perfect for coloring with the Stampin' Blends. It's not going to be so great for watercoloring though, because it's just too thin, right? So beautiful, beautiful paper though, with these gorgeous floral images that you can color in or just leave them black and white. They're so pretty. Let me hold that up just a little bit. Just gorgeous. And these flowers, really is super, super pretty. And then, of course, on the other side, when you flip it over, it's just black and white. It's darker, right? And it's just patterns. So there are flowers on that one, but then we have like a check pattern and a stripe and some dots and a little flowers, and then this fun like interlocking circles. So really, really cool paper, and I love it. We're going to use that tonight for the card that I'm going to make. But first, I want to actually show you the technique. I am going to put together a card, and then I have another card sample for you too at the end. But I really wanted to start with the technique first. So I'm using the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. Now, if you are watercoloring, you can use the shimmery white paper, but really the Fluid 100 paper is going to be even better. There are certain instances where you don't want the textured feel or look to it, or maybe you're not using a lot of water, and so you can get away with using like the shimmery white. But for tonight, because I really want to get some real watercolor looks, I'm going to use the Fluid 100 paper, which is really the best thing for this. I'm going to start with StazOn ink. Now, StazOn is a solvent-based ink, so it is waterproof, and that means I can watercolor with it. Now, you don't want to use your Stampin' Blends with the StazOn ink, all right? Only watercoloring. Normally, you may hear a lot of people tell you not to use your photopolymer stamps, which are the clear stamps. These clear stamps, don't use those in your StazOn ink. I do it. And I have done it for a long time now. I always make sure that I wash them right away and get as much of that ink off there as I can, so it's not sitting on my stamp forever. Now, one thing I have noticed is that the first time you ink this up with the StazOn, you don't always get the best impression. It's not as dark and clear as you want. So I like to stamp it first on a piece of scratch paper, like my grid paper, which I love Stampin' Up's grid paper. And they have this year in the pretty, like with this color on the side of it and this beautiful flower, and it's in the ink colors. So, so pretty. So I'm just going to stamp this. Let's see if we get a good one. And it does like stick to the paper. So that's why I have to hold down the paper to pull it up. So there you go. We got a nice impression on there. Head and clean off my stamp real quick because I don't want that StazOn ink, you know, really sitting on my stamp for a long time. It will stain your stamps, but honestly, with the StazOn, with the photopolymer stamps, everything stains your stamps, right? So I'm not too worried about that. All right, now tonight I am using the water painters. All right, these are our water painters. They come in a set of 3, and they are 3 different sizes. Let me pull off the tops. Maybe I'll show you the sizes. So there is like a super thin and a medium and a big flat one. All right, if you can see that. And I think, you know what? I've been using the super thin one. I thought I was using medium, but I've been using the super thin one. I'm just going to keep using that. Now these tops come off and they turn the opposite way, right? So normally we do righty tighty, lefty loosey. You're actually going to turn this to the right to take it off. I've heard some varying opinions about this. I think it is so that maybe when you're writing with it, you don't accidentally unscrew it. I don't really know, but they turn backwards. So I'm going to grab the smallest one here. Let me go ahead and put the other tops on this. Now you could use a regular watercolor brush to do this technique with, and that is perfectly fine. Personally, I'm just trying to see if there's a difference in these. I like the water painters just because I keep them on my desk and I keep water in them. Now you want to make sure if you do that you keep it upright on your desk, in something. You know, normally markers, we're going to keep them on their sides so that the tip stays wet. But here we want the tips to dry out, right? We don't want them constantly staying wet because if you don't use it very often, it might get a little mildewy in there. And likewise, depending on where you live, you might not be able to do this, but I do it. You just want to make sure that you stand it up and not put it upside down. I have done that before and I have mildewed the tip. So it does happen. Now you could take your ink pads, and some people will take them and they'll squish them in the center where the thumbs, and then you open it up and you get some ink up here. Personally, that is not my favorite. I don't like getting a lot of extra ink up there. I already have trouble keeping my hands clean as it is. So I prefer to use my clear blocks. You could also take re-inkers and just put a couple of drops of re-inkers on your clear blocks. And I could do that. I have the re-inker. This is the Calypso Coral. I have a Calypso Coral re-inker. But y'all, I'm kind of lazy. I'm kind of a lazy stamper, and I don't like to pull out my re-inkers anytime I want to go watercolor. So I just go like this. I just dip it in my ink pad, and that gets me ink on there. Boom. So, and then I can put my ink pad away. This is Calypso Coral, as I said. Now I am going to go ahead. I'm going to pull out a second block. The other thing I want to show you before I get started, I'm going to show you my nasty, gross. Look at this. This is so disgusting. This is my gross. It's an old receiving blanket from one of my children. I don't know. You can't even, it has elephants on it. or bears, or elephants and bears, I don't know. It is covered with ink, and I do wash it, but it's really, really stained. It's just very, I use it, right? I use it. So I have that here too, and I will show you why I have that. I'm going to pull out my water painter, and you do want to just kind of unscrew it just a tiny, tiny bit. The caps are so tight that they don't let in enough air to let the water out. So if you unscrew it just a little bit, that's going to let some water out. And I'm going to go ahead and give myself just a little bit of puddle on this block over here. That's going to be kind of my clean puddle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little puddle over here, and that's going to end up becoming a dirty puddle. So I'm going to start with the clean puddle. Now, what you need to know about watercolor paper is that you want to get it wet, all right? So you always, I don't want to say always, because there's no always to anything, but often you're going to want to get it wet before you watercolor. Where you get the paper wet, the ink is going to bleed into those parts of the paper. Where the paper is dry, it's not going to go, all right? So you don't want to just take this and color the whole thing, because your ink's going to go all over the place, right? You want to color the places you want color. So what I'm going to do on this, if you notice, there are these like sections on the edges where the flower is folded over, and I kind of want to leave those blank. I want to have them be kind of white, just to provide some contrast. The other thing about watercolor is if you have like a big puddle of water, the water will spread out. So the more that your paper is wet, the more the water will spread. The drier the paper, the more the ink will stay in the same spot and will be much more concentrated. So it's just kind of a matter of playing with it. But I'm going to just start here, and I'm going to get this wet, and I'm going to actually kind of puddle it up just a little bit, because I want to get that ink to run. Okay. And I'm going to come over here and pick up some ink. And you can see I put that down, and it, I almost can just like spread it. It's going to go. It's going to follow where that water is. Now, I didn't get the water all the way to the edge, so I can just pull it down towards there just a little bit. Or you can just leave it. And where, hopefully you can see that well enough. I wish I could pull my camera down more, but where, so this is still wet over here, but it's just not got as much ink over there. And that will actually, it'll just dry like this. So it'll be darker in one spot and then lighter in another. Let's see if this one is still wet enough. It's probably dried a little bit, but that's okay. And that's the thing. If you get too much, if you get a little bit too much, you can wipe out your brush and just come and pick some of it back up, add a little bit more of the clean water, and just dilute it out again. So watercoloring is actually very forgiving. Let me show you what I'm going to do with my brush. Now, you do need to be careful with these water painters. If I just when you push it down, it pushes out water, right? And I want to clean it out. If there's water that I've pushed down in here and I let go, it is going to suck the water back up into this barrel. If your tip of your pen, of your water painter, is really inky when it does that, you're going to get inky water in your pen. And then, if you try to switch to a different color, it's not going to work, or you're just going to get more color than you want. So what I do is I push some water down there, and then I just put it on my towel, and I just blot it, and I let go. And that way I'm not pulling water back up into my pen when I don't want to. All right, so I'm just going to keep adding some water over here. And again, I'm just kind of giving it a nice big puddle. So, all right, pull all this. And then we're going to come over here and add, woo, and look at it run. So you can just see that color go where you want it. Or not go where you want, but just go wherever you've made it wet, right? It's just going to go and kind of spread out. That's why I really like watercolor. It's just so much fun to watch and see what it does. It's always different. So, but it does take a little bit of time. I will say that this is not, instantaneous, and it does take time for it to dry. So it won't be ready right away. I'm just adding some more up here. So just to show you, now I haven't put any water on this petal right here. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what happens if I do that. If I come in here, especially if my brush is really inky and I put that down, it's going to be really dark, right? It's going to be really saturated because it's not very wet. But what I can do is I can go ahead and pick up some water and I could add that. You know, if I'm like, oh, that's way too dark, and I can add some water and just kind of spread that out. So, all right. Clean off my brush again. So I just squeeze some water into it and then I just blot it before I let go. And that's going to help me keep from getting that ink up in that barrel. So I'll start with some fresh water again. Oops, see, and it touched that ink a little bit there and it just started running because that's what it does. It wants to go, right? All right, I don't think I'm going to color this whole thing in because I have some extras. I'll show you what they look like. So, but that's how we do it. I was hoping one of these would dry a little bit so I could show you. Oops. So we can just come back in and do some more. Or if you're like, well, that is not dark enough, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to add a little more dark. So you can kind of just go back and forth. Like I said, watercolor is actually pretty forgiving. You can't control it. You got to just let it go and be free with the watercolor. All right, let me show you what some of these look like. I'm just going to clean out my pen again. My water painter. All right. So I have some of these that I've already finished. And here they are. Isn't that fun? So some different flowers. And I just cut these out using the dies. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this aside for a minute. Set aside my other stuff here, and we'll make this into a card. So I have a piece of basic white. This is 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And I'm going to grab, I'm just going to grab some Memento ink. And I want to start by stamping the sentiment on here. So I'm using the sentiment that says, wishing you all the happiness you can imagine. And I'm just going to try to get this on here straightish. So there we go. And now I want to grab some of these leaves. And I'm just going to stamp some leaves on here. And I kind of know, so I know already what I want to do is I want to take 2 of these flowers and I'm going to put them about right there. So I kind of know where I want them, and I'm going to just add some leaves in some other areas. Right? We'll put some up here. Maybe some like that too. Let's see. Let's see if we need more, if that's going to be good. Well, that looks pretty good. And these, I'm just going to leave them white. So we're going to make a very black and white card with just that pop of the Calypso Coral. Isn't that beautiful, Kimberly? I love it too. You know, I kind of stumbled upon this. I was like, oh, I want them kind of orangey. And I just, I don't know, that Calypso Coral looks absolutely gorgeous. I don't even know which of these flowers to use. Maybe I'll use this one. This one has some really dramatic differences on it. All right. So then I'm going to take this piece of basic white and I'm just going to put it on a piece of basic black. This basic black is 2 7/8 by 4 1/8. We're going to go ahead and just adhere this to the front. So much fun. And then I have a piece of that gorgeous designer series paper. This is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And then I have some basic black, and the basic black is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. Our standard card base, right? I'm just going to give that a good fold with my bone folder, and then I'm going to adhere this paper. Oh, this is so pretty. I can't wait to take some pencils or something to that. Oh, I think I need to try my watercolor pencils on this paper because those don't use as much water, so you could use them on the designer series paper. See what that looks like. All right. I'm just going to put that down on my card base. And then I think I want some Stampin' Dimensionals because I love dimensionals, right? Is it even homemade if it doesn't have dimensionals on it? So I have a new sheet of dimensionals. If you caught me on Tuesday night, you know that I was using up the end of my sheet of dimensionals and I succeeded today. I was talking about, on Tuesday night, I was talking about how I don't like to have more than one open piece of dimensionals at a time. I have to use it up before I open a new one. All right, so I'm just pulling those off with my take your pick tool. And then this is just gonna go right on the front. It already looks like pretty like that, but then I don't know, you add these flowers on and they just pop. Poppity pop pop. So we'll just put some multi-purpose glue on the back of there. We'll put this one up here. Wow. And I always like to make things pop, like overflow the edges of frames. I think it adds something. All right, so this one is going to get some dimensionals on it. Add even a little bit more dimension. Pop those backs off. All right. Let's see. Let's do this one like that. Ooh-wee. Isn't that pretty? What do you think? Do you like that? I have another one coming up for you, so don't go anywhere. I have a whole nother sample for you and a different way of doing watercolor too. Not entirely different, but a little bit different. All right, so I have the classic matte dots, and I'm going to add these to my card front. Now the bigger ones, I always like to tuck those partially underneath something. I don't know, they always seem a little bit too big. So if I kind of push them underneath a little bit, oops, maybe too much. It just kind of, I don't know, I like it under there. And we'll take a couple of the small ones. And let's see, let's put this one here. And we'll put one down on the other side. So I kind of make a triangle, and I usually put two kind of close together and then a third one further apart. Usually is a good. So we'll just do it like that. There we go. There's our card. Ooh, pretty. So black and white with just that pop of Calypso. It's Calypso Coral. It looks red to me on there, but it definitely is Calypso Coral. So we're going to do a red one. You'll see what happens with the red. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm so glad you like it. All right. Let me grab my watercolor paper again. Make sure I have my... Oh, I forgot to grab some scratch paper. Let's see. Do I have scratch paper someplace? We'll use this. We'll use this piece. Normally I use one that doesn't have writing all over it, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to start. We're actually going to emboss this. All good, Mom. I'm glad you're enjoying this. All right, so I'm going to emboss this with white embossing powder. So I'm starting with my embossing buddy, and I'm just going to rub the embossing buddy over there. And then I have my Versamark ink pad. Now, I hope I cleaned up my stamp really well. We're going to find out. Because if there is StazOn on here, chances are it will come off in the Versamark. But I think I did pretty well. All right. So I'm going to put this right on my paper. And then just like the StazOn, I want to go ahead and wash this off as quickly as I can. I won't say as fast as I can, but I don't want to leave that Versamark sitting on there too long because it gets kind of slimy and gross. And I was using white ink on Monday, and white ink is hard to get out of your chamois. That is what I am learning here. All right, so I have my white embossing powder, and I'm just going to dump this on here. Woo! Pretty stuff. And we'll tap it off. Now that's probably really hard to see. Let me hold it if I can hold it up a little bit. So you can kind of see it's there. It's white though. And I'm going to melt it. You're not going to be able to really see it melt because it's white on white. So, all right. Put my extra embossing powder back in. And now we zap this. So this is going to get loud for just a minute. And you just want to heat it until it turns shiny. You do want to be careful not to overheat it. All right, so you don't want to overheat it because it will get like completely melted in, but you do want to heat it until it gets shiny. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another clear block. And this time I'm going to use my Real Red ink pad, and we're going to see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and just squish this in my ink pad again. Got some nice red on there. Woo. Grab my water painter again. I'm going to give myself a little bit of water here to make my dirty puddle, but I'm going to grab from my clean puddle. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to add water to here. And again, I'm going to try to avoid those little edges like I did last time, but we're going to do something a little bit different this time. So I'm just going to add in the water. Now I can come in here and grab some of that Real Red. I'll just watch it. Woo! Look at it go. That's why I love watercolor. It just goes. Just goes and goes. Just put it in here. Oh, look at that. It's just going to go. So fun. And we're just going to go all, just let that go all over in there. You can add some. It'll kind of fill itself in. I'm going to take some dirty water and we're going to kind of spread this out a little bit. All right, I'm going to clean off my brush. Remember, I just push it, let some water come out, and then I just tap it off while I let go of the pen. I'm going to pick up some of my clean puddle again. Let's add some up here. My clean puddle is getting dirty too, but that's okay. We'll add some in here. And we'll pick up some red, and that just goes everywhere, and it turns like pink, right? Because it gets, it's not as saturated, so it turns pink. Isn't that pretty? Now, I'm not going to sit here and do this whole thing. You don't need to sit here and watch me do that. That would be a long, long evening, but I just kind of wanted to show you because I just love it. I love watercoloring, y'all. It makes me feel like an artist. I wanted to be an artist. I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't do any of that stuff. So that's why I use rubber stamps because it helps make me feel like an artist. All right, I'm going to push some of that water out, clean off my brush a little bit. And that red really stays in there. You guys know red. Oh, yeah, my husband turned my son's shirt pink today. That happened. That was a thing that happened. So we know what red does, right? So now what I would do is after this is all dry is I would come in here with my dirty water. Okay, so this water that has a little bit of red in it, but it's very, very washed out. And I would just take that and color in those little bits on the edges once the rest has dried. And that will give those kind of a lighter pink. So instead of being white, they're going to be light pink. So that was still wet, so it grabbed that ink right there. So that's why you'd kind of want to wait until that red was all dry. Hopefully you can see that well enough. So much fun. Let me show you what it looks like when it gets all done. I do have that. Yes. Oh, yeah, because the card's already made. I wasn't going to make this card. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. All right. So this one, I made a slimline card with it. So here are those flowers. And this time I actually colored the centers with Daffodil Delight, and I colored the leaves with Granny Apple Green. Let me hold that up just a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Isn't that pretty? I love those white edges with that watercoloring. Such a fun, different way to do it. And then this is one of the dies in the die set. It cuts these like little rectangle holes, and I just threaded some baker's twine through there and kind of did that. So this is a slim line and using that polka dotted. So much fun. You guys, I'm loving this paper. So there are my two cards tonight using watercoloring, one with black and then one with that embossed white. So thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope that you have enjoyed tonight's cards and that you have learned something and that you will go out and you will try doing some watercoloring and not be scared of it if you were a little bit nervous before. I hope that you will join me next Tuesday night. Tuesday night is Stamp With Me Tuesdays, and next week, Tuesday, we are doing mystery stamping. So definitely watch for your list of supplies on Monday afternoon, and I will see you on Tuesday night to do some fabulous mystery stamping. Have a great, great weekend, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.